Welcome back. This is Shabbat service, and I trust that you listen to some highly anointed praise and worship songs. This is Shabbat service for December 5th, 2020, or Kislev 195781 for Waymaker Messianic Jewish and Christian Center USA. So we're going to begin with the Torah portion, which this week is Parashat VaYishlach, and he sent. And this Torah portion begins in Genesis chapter 32, verse 4, and ends in Genesis chapter 36, verse 43. Now, as we ended last week's Torah portion, we saw that Jacob had enough with being treated badly by Laban, actually being taken advantage of by Laban, and he left to return to his homeland, and Laban came after him. And as it ended up, they made a covenant because neither one of them trusted the other. So they just kind of made a covenant that you don't cross this line, I don't cross that line. And that's where we left it. So we're beginning with Parashat VaYishlach, and he sent. So this is where actually Jacob and Esau are going to see each other for the first time since Jacob had left, when actually Esau was very angry with him and plotting to kill him. So Jacob had gone to live with Rebekah's brother Laban. So, and he had been there for 20 years. So Jacob prepares to meet Esau. Then Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau to the land of Seir, the field of Edom. He also commanded them, saying, "This is what you should say to my lord, to Esau. This is what your servant Jacob said. I've been staying with Laban and have lingered until now. Now I've come to possess oxen and donkeys, flocks, male servants and female servants. I sent word to tell my lord in order to find favor in your eyes." The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We went to your brother, to Esau, and he is also coming out to meet you, and 400 men with him." Now imagine how Jacob must have felt. Just, his heart must have stopped hearing that, after being away for 20 years, fleeing for his life, basically. In a sense, because you know Esau was so angry with him, for giving up his birthright, and then the blessing on top of it, and he plotted to kill him uh, once Isaac was not around, and Rebekah heard that, and so indeed Jacob became extremely afraid and distressed at hearing that. He divided the people with him along with the flocks and herds and camels into two camps, for he thought, if Esau comes to one camp and strikes it, the camp that's left will escape. Then Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, Adonai, who said to me, 'Return to your land and to your relatives, and I will do good with you.' I am unworthy of all the proofs of mercy and of all the dependability that you have shown to your servant, for with only my staff I crossed over this Jordan, and now I've become two camps. Deliver me, please, from my brother's hand, from Esau's hand, for I am afraid of him, that he'll come and strike me, the mothers with the children. You yourself said, I will most certainly do good with you, and will make your seed like the sand of the sea, that cannot be counted because of its abundance." So he stayed overnight there. Then from all that had come into his possession, he took an offering for Esau, his brother, 200 female goats, 20 billy goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milking camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He put them in the hands of his servant, each herd by itself. And he said to his servants, pass over before me and put a gap between each of the herds. Then he commanded the first one, saying, when my brother Esau meets you and asks you, saying, to whom do you belong, and where are you going, and to whom do all these before you belong? Then you are to say to your servant, to Jacob, it's an offering sent to my lord, to Esau. And look, he's also behind us. And he also commanded the second one, the third one, and all those who were going behind the flock, saying, say the same exact thing to Esau when you find him. Then you are to say, look, your servant Jacob is also behind us. For he thought, let me appease him with the offering that goes ahead of me, and afterwards see his face. Perhaps he'll lift up my face. So the offering passed over ahead of him while he spent that night in the camp. Then he got up that night and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed over the ford of the Jabbok. That's Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and he sent across whatever he had. Now Jacob wrestles with God. So Jacob remained all by himself. Then a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not overcome him, he struck the socket of his hip. So he dislocated the socket of Jacob's hip when he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for the dawn has broken. But he said, I won't let you go unless you bless me. Then he said to him, what is your name? Jacob, he said. Then he said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but rather Israel. For you have struggled with God and with men, and you have overcome. That's what the name of Israel means. Then Jacob asked and said, please tell me your name. But he said, what's this? You are asking my name? Then he blessed him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, for I've seen God face to face, and my life has been spared. Now the sun rose upon him just as he crossed by Peniel, limping because of his hip. That is why the children of Israel do not eat the tendon of the hip socket to this very day, because he struck the socket of Jacob's thigh on the tendon of the hip. So Jacob meets Esau. Then Jacob glanced up and saw, behold, there was Esau coming, and 400 men with them. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the 2 female servants. He put the female servants and their children first, then Leah and her children behind them, then Rachel and Joseph behind them. But he himself passed on ahead of them and bowed to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to him, hugged him, fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. His eyes glanced up, and he saw the women and the children, and said, who are these with you? The children whom God has graciously given your servant, he said. Then the female servants approached, they and their children, and bowed down. Leah also approached along with her children, and they bowed down. And finally Joseph and Rachel approached and bowed down. What do you mean by this whole caravan that I've met? So he said, to find favor in your eyes, my lord. But Esau said, I have plenty, O my brother. Oh, do keep all that belongs to you. If Jacob said, no, please, if I have found favor in your eyes, then you will take my offering from my hand. For this is the reason I've seen your face. It is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. Please take my blessing that was brought to you, because God has been gracious to me, and because I have everything. So he kept urging him until he accepted. Then he said, let's journey and be on our way, and I'll go ahead of you. He continued, my Lord knows that the children are tender, and that the flocks and the cattle in my care are nursing. So if they were pushed hard, just one day all the flocks would die, Please let my Lord pass on ahead of your servant, and I'll move on further gradually at a pace suited to the livestock that are before me, and at the pace suited to the children until I come to my Lord and Sayer." Then Asa said, "Please let me leave with you some of the people who are with me." But he said, "What's this? Let me find favor in my Lord's eyes." So on that day Esau returned on his way to Seir, but Jacob journeyed to Sukkot and built a house for himself, and for his livestock he made booths. Booths are known as Sukkot. That is the reason that place is called Sukkot. So Jacob arrived in Shalom to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram, and camped right in front of the city. He purchased the portion of the field there where he had pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. Then he set up an altar, and he called it El, for Israel's God. Chapter 34. Dinah is defiled by Shechem. Now Dinah, Leah's daughter, whom she bore for Jacob, went out to look at the daughters of the land. When Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, he took her and lay with her and raped her. But his soul clung to Dinah, Jacob's daughter, and he loved the young woman and spoke reassuringly to the young woman. So Shechem said to his father Hamor, saying, "Get me this girl for a wife." Now Jacob had heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah while his sons were with his livestock in the field, so Jacob kept quiet until they came in. Meanwhile, Shechem's father Hamor went out to Jacob in order to speak with him. Jacob's sons had already come in from the field when they heard, and the men were deeply grieved and furious, because he had committed a vile deed in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, which ought never to be done. But Hamor spoke with him, saying, "My son Shechem, he is very attracted to your daughter. Please give her to him for a wife. Intermarry with us. You can give your daughters to us, and you can take our daughters for yourself. You can live with us, and the land will be open to you. Live in it, move about freely in it, and settle down in it." Shechem also said to her father and to her brothers, "Would that I find favor in your eyes. Whatever you say to me, I'll give. See the dowry and the presents as high as you like. You can set them as high as you like, and I'll give whatever you say to me. But give me the young woman as a wife." But Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father Hamor deceitfully as they spoke, because he had defiled their sister Dinah. He said to them, "We can't do this thing. Give our sister to a man who is uncircumcised, for this is a disgrace to us. Only by this will we consent to you, if you will become like us by circumcising every male. Then we'll give you our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves and live with you and become one people. But if you don't listen to us and be circumcised, we'll take our daughter and leave." Now their words seemed good to Hamor as well as Hamor's son Shechem, so the young man did not hesitate to do it, since he delighted in Jacob's daughter. Now he was honored above everyone else in his father's house. So Hamor and his son Shechem came into the gate of their city and spoke to the men of their city, saying, "These men are enjoying a peaceful relationship with us, and they are living in the land and moving about freely in it. As for the land, look, it's spread out on both sides before us. We can take their daughters to be our wives, and we can give our daughters to them. But by this did these men consent to us to live with us and to become one people, when our males are circumcised as they are circumcised. Their livestock and their possessions they be like won't they be ours?" I'm sorry. "Only let us consent to them, so that they live with us. Now everyone who went out of the gate of his city listened to Hamor and to his son Shechem, and every male was circumcised, everyone who went out the gate of his city. Then on the third day, while they were in pain, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brother, each took his sword and came against the city undisturbed and killed every male. Hamor and his son Shechem they killed with a sword, then took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. Jacob's sons came upon the slain and plundered the city because they defiled their sister. They took their flocks, their cattle, and their donkeys, those that were in the city as well as those that were in the field. All their wealth, their little children, and their wives they captured and plundered, as well as everything that was in the houses. But Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You've brought trouble on me, making me a stench among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. I am but a few men. They'll gather against me and strike me. Then I'll be destroyed, my household and I." But they said, "Should he treat our sister like a prostitute?" Rededication at Beth El. Then God said to Jacob, "Get up, go up to Beth El and stay there. Make an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau." So Jacob said to his household and to everyone who was with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods that are among you. Cleanse yourselves and change your clothes. Now let's get up and go up to Beth El, so that I can make an altar there to God who answered me in the day of my distress and had been with me in the way that I had gone." So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods in their hand, and the rings in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak tree near Shechem. Then they journeyed, and the terror of God was on the cities that were around them. So they did not pursue Jacob's sons. Then Jacob arrived at Luz in the land of Canaan, that is Beth El. He and all the people who were with him. He built an altar there and called the place El Beth El, because God had revealed himself to him there when he fled from the presence of his brother. Then Rebekah's nurse Deborah died and was buried below Beth El under the oak. So it was named Oak of Weeping. God appeared to Jacob again after he returned to Paddan Aram, and he blessed him. God said to him, "Your name was Jacob. No longer will your name be Jacob, and your name will be Israel." So he named him Israel. God also said to him, "I am El Shaddai. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and an assembly of nations will come from you. From your loins will come forth kings. The land that I gave to Abraham and to Isaac, I give it to you, and to your seed after you I will give the land." Then God went up from him at the place where he had spoken with him. Jacob set up a memorial stone in the place where he had spoken with him, a stone pillar, and he pounded a drink offering on it and pounded oil on it. And Jacob named the place where God spoke with him Beth El. Rachel's death and childbirth. Then they traveled from Bethel, and while they were a distance from entering Ephrath, Rachel began to give birth, but her labor was difficult. While she was struggling to give birth, the midwife said to her, "Don't be afraid, for this is also a son for you." Now, as her soul was departing, for she died, she called him Ben-Oni, but his father named him Benjamin. And Ben-Oni is the son of my sorrow or pain. And Benjamin's name came from Rachel, as she had passed away. Then Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. Jacob set up a memorial stone over her grave. It is the memorial stone over Rachel's grave to this day. Israel returns to Isaac. Then Israel journeyed on and set up his tent beyond the Tower of Eder. While Israel was living in that land, Reuben went and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah, and Israel heard about it. Now Jacob had 12 sons. Leah's sons were Jacob's firstborn, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Rachel's sons were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's female servant, were Dan and Naphtali, and the sons of Zilpah, Leah's female servant, were Gad and Asher. These are Jacob's sons, who were born to him in Paddan Aram. Then Jacob came to his father Isaac at Mamre of Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had stayed. Now Isaac's days were 180 years when Isaac breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his peoples, old and full of days. So his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. And Esau's fathers, the Edomites. Now, these are the genealogies of Esau, that is Edom. Esau took his wives from the daughters of Canaan: Adah, daughter of Elon the Hittite; Aholibamah, daughter of Anah, daughter of Zibeon the Hivite; and Basemath, daughter of Ishmael, sister of Nebolah. Adah bore Eliphaz to Esau. Basemath bore Ruel, and Obilmah bore Jush, Jalam, and Korah. These were Esau's sons, who were born to him in the land of Canaan. Now Esau took his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all the peoples of the household, as well as livestock, all his cattle, and all his possessions that he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to a land away from his brother Jacob, for their possessions were too numerous for them to dwell together, and the land where they were residing was unable to support them because of their livestock. So Esau lived in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. So these are the genealogies of Esau, the father of Edom, in the hill country of Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, son of Esau's wife Adah, and Ruel, son of Esau's wife Basemath. The sons of Eliphaz was Teman, Omer, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. Now Timnah was a concubine to Esau's son Eliphaz, and she bore Amalek to Eliphaz. These are the sons of Esau's wife Adah. These are Ruel's sons: Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the sons of Esau's wife Basemath. These were the sons of Abilamah, daughter of Anah, daughter of Esau's wife Zibeon. She bore to Esau Jush, Jalam, and Korah. These are the chiefs from Esau's sons. The sons of Eliphaz, Esau's firstborn, were Chief Teman, Chief Omer, Chief Zepho, Chief Kenaz, Chief Korah, Chief Gatam, Chief Amalek. These are the chiefs from Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Adah. These are the sons of Esau's son Reuel, Chief Nahath, Chief Zerah, Chief Shammah, Chief Mizah. These are the chiefs from Reuel, the land of Edom. These are the sons of Esau's wife Basemath. These are the sons of Esau's wife Obilmah, Chief Jush, Chief Jalam, Chief Korah. These are the chiefs from Oholibamah, daughter of Esau's wife Anah. These are Esau's sons, and these are their chiefs. That is Edom. And I'm going to pause it here for a moment.